Quick, get to the line. Get to the line so we can snap the ball. We're running out of time. Why does this keep happening to the Eagles? Deniz will tell us if it matters coming up next before Zach joins us on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Welcome in to a Football Friday, the first NFC East game on tilt. Bo Wulf, the professor, Deniz Selman in studio. Zach's going to join us at some point if he can fit us into his schedule. How you doing, Professor?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Do you get, as a fan, a little bit more jacked up for a division game?
I always kind of hated the Giants the most, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
proximity
know.
or what?
I don't know why. Yeah, maybe proximity, maybe just like a lot of years of Dallas not being very good, like in my formative years. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly why.
The faux sheen of class?
Yeah, that too. I don't know what it is. Like there were a lot of big games. Like I remember this isn't really growing up. I mean, I was in grad school already, but when the Giants were the 1 seed in 2008,
Okay.
Eagles went up there and won.
Mm-hmm.
They were defending champs and the 1 seed. That might be like my favorite Eagles game that I didn't go to. Like it was a game that I watched on TV.
Okay.
So yeah, there's just something about the Giants. I don't know what it is. It fires me up.
But you are not necessarily extra jacked up because it's Saquon going back to play the Giants.
No. Yeah, not really. No.
Okay. Well, Zach will take care of that.
I'm happy that Zach
For
will
us.
cover that for us. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, we will get to that in a little bit. Let's get down to business, to brass tacks, and let's start with the start of games.
Yeah,
Professor,
good job
Eagles.
with the Bet365 at the start today.
I feel like I have been like the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've gotten it right a few times.
Yeah, I have again. I have accidentally backed into it a couple times, unlike the Eagles, who remain pointless through 5 games.
Yeah, on the very first drive, just 1 first down. That's 5 times for 5 first drives, 22 yards total, just 1 first down.
Difficult to achieve.
Yeah, kind of shocking. As many turnovers as first downs through five drives. 32nd in EPA per drive when you include the second drive as well. So over the first 2 drives of these games. So that's 10 drives total. So the sample size is getting to be a little bit larger. That's about a full game's worth.
Do you see any correlation between the teams that are good at the first 2 drives, and being good offensively?
Yeah,
in general?
when you do like a scatter plot of first 2 drives versus all the other drives, you don't get that many teams that are wildly opposite.
Okay.
Now the Eagles.
So there's the perception, right? That I want to give credit. I think it was Orlovsky, and nobody in the world can do what he does. And I believe that he said the perception being like the first couple of drives are coaches, the rest of the game is players. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When looking at the individual plays, we've talked about this before, there is a little bit of a pattern of trying different personnel groupings. We saw like in Tampa, they started with 21 personnel. They didn't run it again the whole game. Mm-hmm. There was another game where I think it
got Shipley on the field.
Shipley's on the field to get the start. Maybe it was in his like rookie contract or something.
Yeah.
Get 1 start.
Yeah, that's true.
But was
Ben Van Sumeren, was that the second drive?
I have to check my notes. I'll check my notes during the break.
Either
the second or third. It was definitely in the first half. Yeah, I think it was the second drive because we were talking about like different personnel groupings early in the game, and that game was probably the most extreme example. But this is something we've seen in the entire Sirianni era. Doug did this a little bit too, where you start and you just want to see how the defense is going to play, and we've heard both players And Jason Kelce's talked about this a lot in his million hits that he does all over the place. He said that against Jalen Hurts, a lot of defenses play differently than they do against other teams. And so the Eagles, more than other teams, are focused on learning how the defense will play them against certain personnel groupings, against certain formations. And so they're using those first couple of drives to see how they're going to match to 12 personnel, match to maybe 13 personnel, match to Will Shipley. And so maybe that's part of the reason. Like, they're not trying to maximize the probability of moving the ball. They're trying to learn more for other drives. Now, the good news is drives 3 through the end of the game. Yeah. The Eagles, and this might be shocking to some people, are second in EPA per drive in the whole league. Only Washington has been better. So if you were to eliminate the first 2 drives of every game for every team, the Eagles would have the second best offense in the league. So I don't know.
Usually, just for the listeners, you're generally thinking 8 to 10 drives a game.
Yes, there have been on average 10 drives, slightly less than 10 drives if you take out the kneel down drives. Okay. Eagles have had 45 real drives in 5 games. So that's 9 drives a game. So we're not talking about a small sample size with that second number. That's a lot of drives that the Eagles are second best in football. Now, again, I don't know if it's just because of.
I mean, it feels like it has to just be noise, right?
I hope that that's the case, though. Like we said, there is a little bit of, are they just trying so many random things? And then, of course, there's like a little bit of a snowball effect. Like, if first down doesn't work, now you're in second and long, and like now you don't get to. I don't know. Now, last game, a quick note about the last game. It seemed like their solution after coming out of the bye week was to almost pretend like it wasn't the start of the game. They came out and they ran to the line and they ran tempo on the very first play, which I thought was interesting.
They made everybody
get their
quickly jerseys dirty before the first drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was just a run play, but like they snapped it quickly and they ended up getting
like their best run of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, right? Like when we talk about like going quickly and tempo, Sirianni's talked about this. We've heard Kellen Moore talk about this now. We've heard Lane Johnson talk about it, and we'll get more on that in a second. It seems like tempo is their solution to everything, and we're going to talk about all the tendencies on offense that we've been talking about now for a full. I feel like it's been 12 months now of talking about this. 29th in motion, 25th in play action, 31st in under center rate.
Over the whole game?
Over the entire season so far.
Okay.
Yes. 29th in pass rate when under center, so they basically never run under center passes. And depending on where you look, either 31st or 32nd in middle of field target rate. The reason I'm mentioning all of these is because I have like something to say about each one of them. but a bunch of them, they've related to tempo, right? Like, so when you ask Kellen Moore, like, how come you're not using as much motion? He referenced tempo. Zach asked him, how come you didn't use play action? And he referenced tempo again. Like, it's like the answer to everything is like, well, we were using tempo. And I feel like...
And I don't... Intellectually, I don't understand why tempo means none of that other stuff.
Right. And, Kelce talked about this a little bit on WIP as well, that sometimes when the offense wasn't going well, they would change gears. And he said, and we would run tempo, right? And the way he talked about it, it was like, coaches have talked about it this way as well. It's like a whole bunch of plays that they can always run, whether they've practiced them that week or not. And so by nature, they're simpler plays and tend to involve less motion, less play action. Now, to me, just logically, one of the reasons that you would have them not involve play action or motion especially is because they're designed for 2-minute situations, right? Like, you design a part of your playbook for 2-minute situations where you have to go fast.
Right.
So first of all, you want similar formations from play to play. So guys aren't spending valuable seconds. Like, if the clock is running, like, you don't want guys like figuring out where to line up.
Personnel in the field.
Same personnel, same like typically 2x2 sets, and like typical the same route combinations that we see the Eagles run a lot. With the game clock being a factor, I get that, right? But when you choose to run tempo to spark the offense from the first play of the game, can't you just snap the ball fast and then run a schemed up play that you practiced all week? Like, you can get to the line of scrimmage, toy with the defense, regarding when you snap it and things like that. And then you should be able to run any play with motion, with play action, etc. And sometimes I feel like it's like there are different chapters of the offensive playbook.
That is what it feels like, right?
You talked about the Frankensteining of the coaching staff.
Right.
And maybe this is related.
You get to be in charge of our tempo playbook. You get to be in charge of our motion playbook. You get to be, and and everybody's doing their own little thing, and it's not born of the same DNA.
Right. And I would love to hear more from coaches and players about this. Like, maybe this is something like Zach can ask them, et cetera, or you guys can ask them. But it's like, do you really go into a mode where you're in tempo, right? And that just means okay, none of that other stuff. Like, we're in tempo now. Or is there a way to marry those two concepts together and get to the line fast while doing play action and motion?
Sounds like a good idea
like
for a bit on the show as we create a marriage between tempo and motion. It's like, the marriage between the pass game and the running game. We could have Scangarella be the officiant.
Oh, all right. Gotcha. Yeah. There you go. Now, look, the play.
We're gathered here today.
Yes.
The whole thing.
No, I got you. Yeah. With play action in particular.
Zach wears a dress.
Yeah. I'm sure he would agree to that.
We kiss. It's the whole thing.
He would agree to all of that for sure. For sure. You pee sitting down.
I don't think is that part of a traditional wedding ceremony?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is in some cultures. I don't want to make any assumptions. Now, the play action thing in particular was driving me crazy last week.
Okay. Because they ran two plays.
Eagles ran 2 snaps of play action in the entire game.
It is and it is so everybody in the football consciousness understands that in today's NFL, that is the easy button, right?
Yes.
It is always more efficient to run play action. You can't just run it on every play, but in a game when they were running so much, you would think they would set it up a little bit.
The football analytics nerds have proven over time that it doesn't even matter whether you run it a lot or whether you're running it well. But the Eagles run it fourth most often on neutral downs in the league in general. This was their most run-heavy approach of the entire season. 17 of the first 25 normal plays on offense were runs in this game. And they still didn't switch to play action. It's like the 2 plays of play action, by the way. There was a pistol outside zone action boot that schemed up Calcaterra for 34 yards. You can see the flat defender on that play is chasing the run to the other side, so Calcaterra is wide open. The linebacker actually chased it too. A.J. Brown is also wide open on the play. And it's an example of 2 wide open guys on one play, clearly because of play action. And then the 13-yarder to Dotson on the backwards pass.
Yes.
It counted as a run. That was a pin-pull action to the left, where 2 of the linemen are pulling to the left. Dotson's orbit motioning to the right, and he catches a swing screen. Motion and play action on the same play? I mean, the orbit motion and the play action are what spring that play. That's a 13-yard
to Jahan Dotson.
And Jahan Dotson. There you go. So you
3
got
things
everything
that have all been missing.
There you go. Yeah, technically a run. So it's not. It's perfect for you, Bo. It doesn't help him in your favorite stat.
True.
Yards per route run.
That's
So I mean, basically, it's really hard to tell why this is. The guy who yelled at Sirianni allegedly was talking about how after Saquon gets 5 yards on first down, why don't you run it again or whatever? Yeah. Or who knows if that was even the guy, but
I'm sure it was just that polite suggestion. Yeah,
I'm sure it was, but I'm thinking the opposite. I mean, there were 2 different instances in the first half of this game where the first down was an 8-yard run, second down was a 1-yard run, and then third down was a tush push.
Yeah.
And it's just 2nd and 2, maybe instead of running it for one more yard, take a shot. And this is something that in the Sirianni era, the Eagles have not done, is take shots on 2nd and short. They did it in Brazil, and I mentioned it, and I talked about how exciting it was. They haven't done it a single time.
I actually I haven't gone back to just watch that Week 1 game in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would look like a totally different offense.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, there were some wrinkles in this game. A couple of things like the AJ 22-yarder had an exit motion by the tight end that set up AJ against a guy or whatever. So there are small wrinkles where you can see motion working. So I don't want to make it sound like there's nothing in the offense using motion or gaining advantages from it. It's just so much lower a rate than every other team in the league. Again, 29th in the league in motion. I joked when Kellen Moore got hired, I tweeted, safe to say the Eagles will rank in the top 31 in motion this year. And I was right. So sure. I was right. 29th, baby. All so, right.
Yeah. We will hear more about those tendencies in just a minute. Hello. Fresh. Yes, that's right. We're talking about our friends at HelloFresh today. What is HelloFresh? With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it is America's #1 meal kit. You can whip up tasty restaurant-style meals in your own kitchen without the high price tag of takeout in less time than it takes to get delivery. From hearty dinners to game day snacks, HelloFresh has a variety of recipes and flavors to perfectly accompany sweater weather, or hoodie weather, as we like to say. We're looking at you, pumpkin spice. Uh-oh. Please know, HelloFresh has you covered. What do we talk about? It's very, very difficult to check all the boxes when you're making dinner for the family during the week. You want something that's healthy, you want something that doesn't take a long time, and you want something that tastes good. Well, HelloFresh. Hello. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freeeagles. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/freeeagles. All one word. Thanks to HelloFresh for joining our rotation. And now I tell you about what's going on tomorrow. The National Thoroughbred League is owning the day at Parks Racing with a lineup of 5 NTL races and Philadelphia's biggest day of racing outside of the Pennsylvania Derby. The NTL Philadelphia Cup, hosted by Dr. J himself, Philadelphia Stallions owner Julius Erving. Meet and greets with a dozen Philadelphia sports legends, including Dr. J, Brian Westbrook, Freddie Mitchell, and many more. And you can talk a little smack to Otis Anderson, Howard Cross, and some other ex-Giants. There's a private beer garden with great brews on tap, the NTL music stage with Philly legends and other performers, best in Philly food offerings, incredible art demonstrations starring Eric Wall, the NTL's Guinness record-holding artist in residence, all kinds of good stuff. The most exciting day of racing anywhere this year. Doors open at noon and races start at 2:30 p.m. We are partnering with NTL to give diehards exclusive access to this event. Just show your email subscription at the gates for free admission. For more information, visit ntl.racing. Okay. Professor, let's. What do you want to start with within those subsets of the things you talked about? You want to start with motion and play action?
Well, I think we covered motion and play action.
Okay.
Under center is the next one.
Okay.
And Jason Kelce talked on WIP.
Heard of him?
He was a center. So who better to talk about under center? He said he always preferred running like stretch play action from under center rather than shotgun.
So we can rule out now that it is carried over from Kelce to Juergens. It had anything to do with like Kelce's butt.
I think that's probably right. Okay. Also, similar body types between those two centers. So that's probably not what it is, but I don't know. It's a good question to ask.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to ask the question now. We can rule it out.
Okay, yeah, let's rule that out. Okay. Now, Kelce also said that first of all, the RPOs don't seem to be working as well this year. And when that happens, he thinks that being unpredictable is the most important thing when you run a play. And by that, what I think he meant is that Jalen's skills are like there are more threats in shotgun because you're keeping the quarterback run in play.
Okay.
So rather than having him turn his back, and we've heard all of this, we've heard all of this before, but basically the idea is like if they're dedicating a guy to kind of like waiting on the backside of the play for in case Jalen keeps it, running the play from under center eliminates that. He said you can have a dynamic offense in shotgun but still have to be more creative. Now, the reason the main reason I'm referencing what Kelce said is because I thought it was interesting. He said the shotgun offense is quote unquote more dummy proof. And I don't know. I'm not sure he's calling somebody a dummy, but that is what he said. So I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, also we know that when you're in shotgun, it means that you can be scanning the field while you're carrying out your fakes. You don't have your back turned to the defense, so there's a little bit more time to process, right?
Right. Well, since you mentioned that, I was going to mention this later, but Kurt Warner said this week that when he watches quarterbacks, he says young quarterbacks especially, he said a lot of them are starting their reads in the wrong place, and they're just kind of staying stuck to that and throwing the ball where it shouldn't go, given the play call and the defense. And he said that Jalen isn't like that he's good at knowing where to look first, but he needs to improve speeding up the progression from 1 to 2 to 3. And I found that interesting. It does seem like there have been plays this year where it looked like he never got to one side of the field. Like there was a guy open, but he never got to that. He just ended up throwing it to the other side. He's still the third slowest in the league to throw the ball, averaging 3.1 seconds per throw. But I do wonder if the coaches think, well, look, he's kind of slow going through progressions as it is. If we start that progression later because he's under center with his back turned, by the time he turns, is it, too late to go through a real progression?
Really, we're talking about let's have 3 plays a game like that, right?
Yeah, I agree. Instead of 1 every 3 games, which is kind of what it's been. This relates a little bit to the last point on tendency, which is the middle of field rate. I saw a graphic on Twitter. I think it was from Football Insights. I don't want to get that wrong, but they plotted all of the quarterback seasons from the last 4 years based on middle of field pass rate. And 3 of the 4 lowest seasons are 2021 Jalen Hurts, 2023 Jalen Hurts, and 2024 Jalen Hurts. 2022 is the only one where he was close to not at the very bottom, basically. Right. And anecdotally, when I watch the film at least, and I always pause it at the top of the drop and kind of see what he's looking at, on the ones where, and this is totally unfair to the quarterback, obviously, we all know this, plotting it in slow motion and looking at the whole thing. But when I've said, hey, he had this guy open for a deeper completion, it's typically a guy in the middle of the field, and he threw it to the outside to AJ or DeVonta. And I'd like to, I'd love to hear, I see Fran's in the chat, I'd love to hear what Fran has to say about that. There were some examples in this game. Very first drop back of the game. 2nd and 5, Schwartz runs a cover 1 blitz, and they completely bust the coverage. 2 guys cover DeVonta running an inbreaker, and Dallas Goedert is wide open, running from the middle of the field to the corner. But still, he's just wide open. And Jalen throws an ISO go ball to AJ, which falls incomplete.
And Dallas decides to fake an injury and says he's never playing for this team.
He only played 1 more play after that, and who knows when we're going to see him again?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You can't see the injury on the film, so who knows? Not to start conspiracies. Not to start conspiracies.
But we wouldn't blame him if he did.
No, we would not. Couple of times the Eagles ran these 2x2 Haas concepts that the Patriots were famous for. So Haas is hitches outside slot seams. So both of the slots are running seam routes, and Jim Schwartz famously runs a lot of single high safety. So the idea is those seam routes are supposed to put the post safety in conflict. And there was one play in particular where DeVonta and Calcaterra are just screaming open at the one high safety, and he kind of cheats towards Calcaterra, and AJ, and instead it's just a hitch to AJ on the outside. So that's another one where he's not looking at the middle of the field. There's an excuse on all of them. They started in too high on that one, and they rotated to cover 3. So maybe Jalen's thinking that it's not a single high play. I don't know. He did hit Calcaterra on the 120-yarder on the seam route in the 2-minute drill, and that's one where Schwartz was rotating his guys into an exotic Tampa 2, and he threw it anyway, and it was open. So I don't know. It's really you can look at individual plays. The one to Jahan Dotson, and Calcaterra's open for a touchdown. The one on the last drive. Oh, okay. Maybe it was better to milk the clock than score a touchdown, so it didn't really matter. But Rodney McLeod is in the post to start the play, vacates it in the famous Schwartz invert 2. By the way, I realized how much I missed Jim Schwartz when I watched this game on film. I was like, I remember the invert too, But Calcaterra is just wide open, screaming at the post there, and Jalen doesn't even really look there. So anyway, there's an excuse on all of these.
What did the post do to him?
Well, we're never going to know because he didn't get his revenge. But yeah.
And now, what do you make of the talking point this week about the Eagles getting to the line late?
Yeah, so if anyone missed it, Lane Johnson expressed concern that they were snapping the ball too late in the play clock, and that led to defenses being able to run their packages more, that kind of thing. He said they're also just better in tempo. So, thanks to True Media, I was able to do a little bit of a deep dive into this. I want to distinguish 2 things. One is huddle versus no huddle.
Okay.
And then the other is how fast they snap the ball when they're not in no huddle. And when they're in no huddle, they're snapping it fast. Just like everybody. Now, the Eagles do run no huddle 25% of the time, which is 4th most in the league. So there's the Kingsbury Commanders are over 50%. It's almost like Chip Kelly. And then everyone else is more reasonable. But the Eagles are still 4th highest at 25%. For what it's worth, league-wide, success rates are higher in no huddle than huddle. So you have to kind of understand that that's like the baseline. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Some of them are game situation, but the Eagles are 42%
higher in huddle than no huddle.
No. No huddle has always been more successful.
Yeah, okay,
and that's always been the case. Yeah. So the Eagles are 42% success rate,
which is why when the offense is struggling, you hit the tempo button.
Just hit the tempo button and go no huddle. And I'm not even kidding. Like that might be like something that teams have looked at and just been like, and that's probably what Chip Kelly believed in too. I mean, like now the no huddle league average is 48% and the huddle average is 41%. So there's a big difference in success rates, and the Eagles are pretty much exactly average in both. So they're 42% huddle, 48% no huddle. This is success rates on plays. Okay. So they have been more successful when they're in tempo. This is just true, and this is true when you control for not 2-minute drill as well. Okay. So Lane has something there. Now, can you build the entire plane out of the box, a black box or whatever? Right? Like Chip Kelly tried, and it didn't, end up working in a sustained way, right? Because the number of plays you can run and all that
before Zach comes in.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm trying to squeeze as many of these things in as I can before it gets here. But getting to Lane's point, when they huddle, when you take out the fourth quarter, because teams are intentionally milking the clock in those situations sometimes, and you take out all the no-huddle plays, the Eagles have the second highest rate of letting the play clock get down to 5 seconds. 46% of the time. So it's them and the Jets are both around 46%. The third highest team is 34%. So the Jets and the Eagles are outliers. There's no other team that's letting the play clock get down to 5. Sirianni said this morning that in practice they have a 35-second clock instead of a 40-second clock. Okay. So if they practice like they play, that's a delay of game 46% of the time. In practice. So I'm assuming that's not the case. But so I thought that was interesting. When you do 2 seconds, you might think 5 seconds is who cares if it gets down to 5. When it gets down to 2, you're normally in that frantic mode where the quarterback is like clapping his hands and stomping his feet.
Knows the snap is coming. They can get
like there's a guy not lined up or whatever. The Eagles are the second highest in that as well. 13% of the time, they let it get down to 2 seconds. Now, when you look at what's happened on those plays, this is a lot of noise. Like the A.J. Brown 22-yarder, the play clock was at 2 seconds. The Saquon touchdown in Brazil, the play clock was at 1 second. So there are examples of plays that work, and the Eagles have not particularly been worse on those plays, but league wide. So 2 questions, right? 1, is this new this year? And 2, doesn't matter, right? In terms of success. So the answer to the first question is yes, this is new this year. This 46%, letting the play clock get down to 5. This is new. Under Sirianni in the last 3 years, it's been 33, 30, and 35. So it has jumped this year. Okay. Now, why? Is it because Jalen's calling the protections? Is it because there's slightly more motion than there was? Is it because Sirianni's talking some nonsense to Kellen Moore about game situation in the headset and it's taking too long?
It's probably both the changes to who is calling the stuff pre-snap and it's a new offense, right? There's a lot of new things, right?
That's probably right. Yeah. I mean, it seemed like was it Brooks who was asking about this morning? Where he was trying to get answers from Sirianni about what's causing the slowness, and he kind of said it's kind of everything, right? And he mentioned that one of the things is him talking to Kellen about game situation. I don't know. So look, league wide success numbers do drop when you let the play clock run down, right? It's 38% when you let it get down to 2, 43% when you don't. This is only in huddle situations. So, this is since 2020. So, when you look at a large sample, it's generally not a good approach to let the clock run down. So, and also, you guys talked about this yesterday. I don't think Lane Johnson would bring this up in a locker room scrum if there wasn't some sort of thinking behind trying to solve that.
All right, let me tell you about our friends at Z-Biotics, because it's ZB time, you know that. And Z-Biotics is what you do when you're getting ready for a night out on the town. Let's face it, I'm an old man. After a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to, so you got to make a choice. You can either have a great night or a great next day. Well, that is until you discover pre-alcohol. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. Use code PHLY Eagles when you sign up, and they will hook you up. All right, now we move on to our friends at Game Time, our day one friends at Game Time. And, you know, if you're a Zach Berman kind of guy, you like a comedy, maybe you're going to go see some comedy tonight. If you want to join Zach, you could check the prices on Game Time are working, or you could use the Game Time picks that they've got going on now. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. At some point here, the Fly guys are going to come home. You want to see Mitchkoff in action, but you want to wait till the end, right? You want to see the best deal you can get. Game Time will hook you up. All-in pricing, seat views, the lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage. We've been talking about it for over a year. Game Time is the place to get your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Deniz, let's keep our discussion going. Where would you like to go next?
Well, I'd like to say hi to Zach.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hey, great to see you. Yeah, good to see you.
What are you doing here?
Eager to be on the show, eager to be in studio. Excited to be here. Good to see you, Professor Selman.
Hey, good to see you.
How are things over there at the NovaCare complex?
Busy. Good day today. Good locker room. I left early, but caught up with Jordan Davis, caught up with DeVonta Smith, chatted a bit with Brandon Graham. So, yeah, good locker room today. Had a chance to speak to Nick Sirianni with Bo today. Was on the practice field. I think most noteworthy on the practice field is that Jalen Carter and Darius Slay were out there. So that's could be interpreted as a positive sign. We'll see about their status for this week.
We could say it is definitely a positive sign. We don't know if they play, but we would imagine they will.
Yeah,
right?
it's certainly a sign of progress. Now, Eli Ricks was not practicing.
That'll be tough with Malik Nabers coming back.
And it appeared that Danny Gray, the practice squad wide receiver, was not practicing. Just trying to give everyone the scene there.
Now, what about Byron Young?
Was he? I think he was practicing. Was he not
He was
practicing?
not practicing yesterday, I believe. Because it seems to me like they could be trying to send Byron Young down the Janarius Robinson highway to irrelevancy.
Janarius Robinson disease was last seen. Alberto was the last one to have Janarius Robinson disease last year.
The Pumphrey
the sickos know what we're talking about. Yeah,
I think Byron Young was out there. I'm trying to look at my photos right now. Yeah.
Would you have taken a photo of Byron? I guess you take the wide angle.
I take the wide angle and zoom in. Exactly. But yeah, speaking.
What did you learn from DeVonta and Jordan Davis?
Well, DeVonta Smith, it's kind of been the theme of the week, is getting up to the line quickly, and he said that, and he said, he was getting all these questions about the offense, and he said he just wants to make it clear they're not going to have a perfect game, right? And I said, well, like, what does a perfect game look like for you, DeVonta? And he said getting out of the huddle quickly. He said getting out of the huddle quickly and getting to the line, which I think is actually a pretty low baseline for a perfect game. But and then he said executing thereafter. But look, I think all the topics we've discussed throughout the week, I haven't listened to the first 20 minutes of the show today, but I imagine, or the first 26 minutes of the show, but I imagine Professor Selman got into a lot of those topics. And yeah, they're aware of it in the building. And I think you're going to see more. Like, actually, I'll give a shout out to NJ.com's Chris Franklin. He took a good photo at practice today of the quarterbacks practicing practicing taking snaps from under center. So maybe this is something you're going to see more. I think the middle of the field usage, play action usage, but really the big emphasis from DeVonta, from different offensive players, was getting to the line quicker. And he talked about all the things that allows you to do, getting to the line quicker. So that was a point of emphasis. There's some Saquon questions for him, and he said, frankly, he wants them to focus on Saquon. Like, he said that they focus on Saquon, the wide receivers are free. He spoke a lot about Cleveland's coverages dictating what they did, what the Eagles did, and he said the Giants are a much different defensive team than that, and different than in the past. When you went against this defense in the past during Devontae's time here, you knew it was going to be blitz, blitz, blitz from Wink Martindale, right? It's a different defensive structure here with Shane Bowen. So he said that that this is a different scheme. So he kind of said, and it's interesting, when you think of offense, you think of being on the offensive, right? But he said, really, on offense, you react to what the defense is doing. If they're presenting a coverage, then you're tailoring what you do to that coverage. So the way they played against the Browns last week was based on the way the Browns played them.
If I can follow up on that real quick, they clearly went into that game against Cleveland thinking a lot about the opponent, right? The aggressive D-line, the heavy press man coverage, and all that, and they game planned against that. Yeah, absolutely. And Jim Schwartz, like a lot of the tendency numbers for that defense, for that Cleveland defense, were kind of extreme, like extremely high man coverage, extremely high press man, and all that. The Giants' defense is far more normal. They rank basically in the very middle of the league in every tendency metric you can think of. They're 16th in man coverage, 14th in blitz rate. And when you break down the zone coverages, they're 13th in cover 3, 13th in cover 4, 20th in cover 2, 19th in cover 6. They're middle of the league in everything. So Shane Bowen, as Zach was just saying, is very different from Wink Martindale in that sense. Wink Martindale had the crazy dollar personnel and all the heavy blitzing. We should get a better sense, therefore, of the Eagles' opponent neutral game planning this week, right? It can't be the opponent every week. They can't say every week, well, the reason we didn't run play action and motion and any of this is because of the opponent. This is about as middle of the road a defense as you're going to get in terms of not necessarily in terms of talent or whatever, but in terms of tendencies. And the other thing is, Eagles were very run heavy last week, and this is a follow up to your comment about Saquon and them focusing on Saquon. For whatever it's worth, Shane Bowen's the last time the Eagles saw Shane Bowen was 2022. When he was with the Titans, and the Eagles had one of their heaviest pass games of that season. They ran the ball very little on the opening few drives. Game. Yep. AJ Brown had a monster game. Giants are very strong up front as well against the run, so maybe we'll see that thing again. Giants also seem to be double teaming Jamar Chase a lot last week. We saw them with active double teams in man coverage, and also a lot of cone coverages over him as well. They'll probably handle AJ the same way. It'll be interesting to see how that chess match goes.
And Bo remembers, of course, one of his favorite scenes from Hard Knocks was when they were deciding to hire Shane Bowen, and Brian Dable's like, "Look at this run defense here."
This is he's 8th in rushing yards allowed per game. It's the most basic. That's how they did their hiring.
That Sean Payton. Carson Wentz throws for between 103 yards and 171 yards. He never wins or something.
Okay, so with presumably no Dallas Goedert, you talked about the heavy personnel stuff. What is on your mind in this matchup on that front?
So You're not gonna. Should we save the end of halftime management thing, which is driving me crazy?
Well, let's save that for after the next.
We can save it.
We've got one more ad break.
You asked Kellen Moore this question, I believe, on Tuesday, and he confirmed my suspicion that all the 12 personnel, even without Goedert, was to get coverage identification from Schwartz.
Right.
They especially ran that, and this is very easy to see when you're watching live as well. They ran a lot of the 2x2, where both wide receivers are on one side and both tight ends are in line on the other side, and you get a great sense of if both of the corners go over there, right? If they're matching with base and they only have two corners on the field, if they're both going over to the wide receivers, you have a decent sense that it's man coverage. Both of the mesh plays, the 13-yarder in the first half and then the big 45-yard touchdown, came out of that where they identified man coverage and then they were able to run that play. So we'll see if there's a lot of 12 personnel again in this game. But the Eagles were over 50% 12 personnel in that game. 34% now for the year, leads the league. Somewhere, Paul Adamovich is smiling. He's going to come out of retirement. Now, the tight end numbers with Goedert the last 2 years, Zach referred to this a little bit. 2022, 5 games. It was stolen Calcaterra then as well. They caught a total of 11 balls in those 5 games for 22 yards a game, so not a big impact. 2023 was even worse. Dallas Goedert missed 3 games. It was caught 2 balls. Calcaterra wasn't targeted. Alberto was targeted once and dropped it. And Julio Jones, who I'll throw in there as an honorary tight end because the Eagles ran a hilarious amount of 10 personnel in those games, caught 3 balls for 5 yards. Julio's coming. So 22 yards total in those games, including the Julio Jones, and that's in 3 games. So basically, the Eagles have just ignored the tight end in the passing game when Dallas Goedert hasn't been in the game. So hopefully the Calcaterra numbers from last week will be an indicator that it's a little different. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think Calcaterra, and I said this on the show, he's someone who they are bullish on in the building. Speaking to DeVonta today, that came up. I'm curious to see because, Jack Stoll, that's not what he does well. And we did see a lot of Jack Stoll in the past. And I think the big difference this year is it's going to be the Calcaterra show at tight end.
The Calcaterra show.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it the mustache? He doesn't have the hair anymore, but he has the mustache.
He has the mustache.
That's the
Skinny
difference.
Yeah. From Super Troopers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've never seen?
No.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, I should. Yeah.
How about no Jordan Mailata?
Yeah, so Fred Johnson said yesterday in the locker room.
Your boy, Fred Johnson.
Yeah, my boy. Yeah, I don't see him as often as Zach does, but I don't know how often you see him in the wild. But
3 days a week I see him, but not in the wild.
Not in the wild. He said he wasn't expecting help. He said that if they were ever going to help him, they would have last week when he had to block Myles Garrett one-on-one and some key plays at the end of that game. The Eagles rarely leave guys in to protect that way.
Yes.
Other than having the running back scan for blitzers and stay in if there's a blitzer, it's rare that the Eagles will chip. It's rare that they will do anything other than leave their tackles on an island, and that's been true. And it was like Jack Driscoll playing in past years and things like that. So
Bryce
do
Huff got paid.
Do you think this is just a Jeffrey Lurie top-down, no chips allowed policy?
I think they just really. Oh,
I see
wow,
what you
that's
did
good.
there.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, that might be right. Obviously they've invested a lot in the starting tackles, but it's interesting that they continue that way when it's a backup.
Which shows me it's a Stoutland thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that's probably right. Now, Fred Johnson, I feel like in the plays where Fred Johnson gives, and Fran talked about this as well, but you can really see it on film. Like the plays where he gives up pressure, it's usually because he's not anchoring and he's getting bull rushed. The Giants have used Dexter Lawrence as an edge rusher. They've done it against the Eagles in the past. I don't know if you guys remember when Lane came back from that injury in the playoff game 2 years ago. Dexter Lawrence, there was one snap where he had it really tested Lane's injury. Like he was like, I had to stop a Dexter Lawrence bull rush on that one play. So I guess I'm back or whatever. And they did that some against Cincinnati last week. So they move guys around, as Fran was talking about yesterday, a lot. Like they have Burns standing up, like Micah Parsons does sometimes. They have Lawrence lining up all over the place. 93, the guy was on Tampa, Nunez Roches. He lines up on the edge and inside as well. So I am expecting that Fred Johnson will be tested in every way, like by Brian Burns, by Dexter Lawrence, and we'll see if he holds up. In
the games that I watched, it looked like Burns coming around that side far more than anybody else. So I think that's the matchup.
Yeah, he started the season more on the other side, but last week he was on the left tackle side almost the entire game. They also ran a bunch of stunts with him that were successful. So yeah, I mean that'll be likely where he lines up again.
And the book on Fred Johnson, and we've talked about this, more comfortable on the left side. He said that this week, much more comfortable on the left side. Big bodied guy, not the same athlete that Jordan Mailata is. But he's someone who's developed in the past year and a half that he's been here. He much prefers tackle to guard. Mm-hmm. He's made that clear. Prefers left side to the right side. So this is if there's any game where it's like more natural for him, it's this Sunday.
I think there is a little bit of King Dunlap to Fred Johnson's game where he is bigger than he is strong. You can get inside Fred Johnson and push him back if you're a defensive lineman.
Agreed.
Okay.
Quick thing about the Giants, they'll use penny fronts a decent amount, or at least they did last week. I imagine they'll do that against the Eagles as well. That way they can have the 5-man D line to stop the run and still play nickel behind it. Now, when they were in man coverage last week, they just completely lost track of Joe Burrow a couple of times. I mean, Burrow had a big scramble up the middle for a first down, and then later he had a big, like 40-something yard touchdown on a scramble where they were in man coverage on both of those plays. I'm guessing they'll keep Jalen in mind a little bit more than Joe Burrow.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna have what I hope is a classic Deniz rant coming up in just a minute. We have one more ad read to tell you about. It's flu season, people. Get those flu shots. Do your part for the rest of society and do it at Rite Aid. Don't miss the big game or Halloween or Thanksgiving. Get your flu shot at Rite Aid. And while you're at the pharmacy, get the latest COVID-19 vaccine as well and stay up to date on others. You can even ask your pharmacist for a vaccine review or recommendations. The CDC recommends getting a flu shot every year. A person's immune system protection from vaccination declines over time. Help protect yourself against the flu by getting your annual flu shot at Rite Aid today. Flu viruses are constantly changing, according to the CDC. Get your annual flu shot formulated to help protect you against this year's expected flu strains. And while you're at the pharmacy, stock up on cough, cold, and flu and allergy essentials. Rite Aid has what you need to get you through the season. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule at riteaid.com. State, age, and health restrictions apply. Ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for details. Zach, why don't you tell us about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Service?
Thank you. Yeah, because there was something in the house that I had to fix, and I had no idea what to do. And I thought, you know what? I should call Ace Hardware Home Services. If you have a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. If there's an air conditioning issue, they have a person for that. If there's a faucet that you say you'd fix last fall and it's still a problem, there's a person for that too, because they're not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. And I need home service and repair. From plumbing to heating and cooling, we've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services. We're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
All right, Professor. Now, before we get to your rant, I noticed you got the UVA hat on. I wonder if you and Zach want to commiserate over the extinguished career of Tony Bennett.
Well, I think
the great crooner.
UVA has 6 tournament wins in the last 7 seasons. And
they have a title.
What better way to allocate them than all in one year? So, we'll always have that 2019 title. And I think UVA basketball was very entertaining to watch under Tony Bennett. I mean, like the number of shot clock violations, the slow tempo. If you're into shot clock violations, which I am actually, on both offense and defense. I mean, UVA was it was fun, but yeah, it was a good era. When I was there, we had Pete Gillen, and he was
an ugly man.
He was really good with engaging with the fans. Like he would take us out to lunch and things like. What did you call him? Did you call him ugly? That's not nice, Bo.
I said lovely, man. Wait, you didn't say lovely? You said ugly?
Did you say ugly or lovely?
I thought you said lovely.
That's the first thing I think about.
Okay.
I'm so confused right now. I still don't know which one you said.
I'll say I have great respect for Tony Bennett as a person. I kind
of a dick move to wait this long, huh?
I actually disagree on that. Let's
get into it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so
you think Kyle Guy will be the coach at some point?
Oh, well, this year it's Ron Sanchez.
Right. No, I know.
I think that's
but
why
just
he
going
did.
forward,
Yeah.
I mean, do you see a Kyle Guy era coming up?
Not in the next 3 to 5 years, but maybe down the line. There's plenty of people who would make sense for that job.
This is for my friends in the audience, like the 7 people who care about both
Ryan Odom.
UVA basketball.
If they went outside of UVA, Ryan Odom would make sense.
It's a dick move because he's choosing to be loyal to the guy who's going to be the coach, right? He wants his guy to take over. That's fine. But now the kids can't transfer.
Well, actually, they can. There's a 30-day transfer period after a coach resigns. Yeah, after a coach resigns. Okay. But you're not going to transfer once he's trying to keep the team intact. He's trying to keep the program from disintegrating.
He's taking over the players.
No, because no.
Unless they knew.
Yeah. Well, I think that he did sign a contract extension this offseason, but even he acknowledged that there was kind of concern, trepidation, and as I was saying, Tony Bennett is he treats people very well. Everyone and this isn't like someone who's just nice to the media. He's known for his grace. I think there was a poll in among college basketball coaches, if your son could play for anyone, who would it be? And it was disproportionately Tony Bennett. That's just the kind of person that he is.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who have met him and also he met their kids and played basketball with them and everything. And I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about him.
And then
except for Bo.
And then he develops players.
He's not a saint.
And then I'm not saying
basketball coach.
and then he develops his players, right? And I think he deserves his flowers. He gets criticized for the style of play. I get that. But I tell you,
I don't have any problem with that. He's trying to win games.
I covered a lot of losses at UVA, and after I left, so I covered Tony being hired. I covered Tony's first year. I covered going into his year 2. He's won a lot of games since then, and the program is in a better shape than he found it.
All right, let's get to some super chats before we keep going. From Rohit, who says, "Would pistol help?"
It did on the 34-yarder to Calcaterra.
There you go.
Oh.
I'm going to make a gun joke. I don't really like gun jokes. Musa asks, is the lack of Jalen's throwing over the middle of the field, does it have anything to do with his relative shortness and the tallness of our O-line? Becton as a guard is 6'7". I think there is potentially something to that. I mean, it has carried on for so long. It is one potential explanation for why he doesn't throw the ball over the middle of the field.
I mean, Cam Jurgens wasn't particularly tall last year, but I see your point. Well, it's relatively speaking, but I see your point. I think it has more to do with perhaps his proclivities, perhaps the way they use.
Perhaps his proclivities are related to that. He can see it clearer on the outside.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the height of the offensive line. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Well, yeah, I think it's
Jalen's not that short. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I just can't imagine that's really the reason.
Yeah, Drew Brees
I don't
throws
think
over
there's
the
any
middle
one reason.
I
think it could be a part of many reasons.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. Eagles do run the 9th most pistol in the league for what it's worth. But
okay, CDP asks, the Eagles were assigned Vilma last week and got flexed out next week. What hijinks can Nick pull to ensure we get Romo or Brady in the near future?
I just think the Eagles need to win games, right?
Nudity could help. But.
They got Mark Sanchez this week. I'm looking forward to the playback with Mark Sanchez. Always enjoyed Mark Sanchez when he was here. I'll say that, look, I know the sky's falling everywhere in Philly. If they win this game, they're 4-2, right?
Great.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you judge wins and losses, they'll have one of the best records in the league if they win this game. Or they'll have one of the best winning percentages in the league if they win this game.
I talk about wins a lot, but I mean, in this case, there have been 5 games.
They're not playing well.
4 of them were coin flips.
Agreed. They have a negative point differential.
The one game that wasn't was a blowout loss.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, we're still waiting for that game where after the game, we're not only going to say, okay, the team won, but that was a comfortable win. It was a good win against a good team. We'll talk more about the schedule coming up. I'm not sure when we're going to be able to say that. And DVOA is more predictive than wins and losses.
Oh, I agree.
The offense is 12th and the defense is 26th. And that's not where we wanted either of those.
No, I was speaking about it as far as the flex, not defending the way they play. Is that the reason why that Eagles-Bengals game got flexed is the Eagles are 3-2. The Bengals are 2-4 right now. And so you're looking at a game that's kind of a sexy matchup between the number 1 and number 2 picks.
Yeah, they want the 2 picks.
So that makes sense. But you're not going to flex a game out that has 2 teams with
you're right.
So that's what I mean is that if they win this game, they're 4-2. I imagine a 4-2 team with high profile players is more enticing to the networks than a team that's 3-3 and all the talk is about the coach getting fired.
Now there's a chance that the Jacksonville game will get flexed. I mean, that's
out of Sunday night.
That's a Sunday nighter against a team that's currently 1-5.
That's true.
The Doug reunion doesn't have quite as much juice, especially if Doug's
will
not there
Doug even be there? Yeah, exactly.
Last super chat, Zach, who's your favorite Lord of the Rings character outside of the Fellowship?
Never seen Lord of the Rings. Couldn't tell you a single character in it.
Julia just gasped.
Yeah. Julia's normally
you can't be surprised by that.
Yeah, she was for 28 years. This shouldn't surprise you at all. I've never seen.
I mean, Legolas is kind of an athlete.
I've never seen
arrows.
a Lord of the Rings episode. If I'm not watching something that's nonfiction, it's like I'm watching the Aaron Hernandez thing right now. That's not that good.
Just trying to imagine where that would rank in things I want to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, the clips that I've seen online are very funny, but
it's not the best show.
But you got to watch it. With your precious 45 minutes of free time.
It puts me to sleep at night. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Deniz?
What was the question?
Your favorite Lord of the Rings
Oh,
character.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy either. Yeah. Sorry, I was hoping that you weren't asking me.
Well, I have to ask for the super chat. All right. Let's get into the thing that is on your mind. And it is not the way that the games are starting necessarily that has you aggravated. It is the way that the first halves are ending.
Yes. I think, all week long, everyone talked about Nick Sirianni, mainly because he seems to be degrading into insanity with the shaved head and the way he's acting and everything. But the real thing that sparked the criticism of the head coach more than anything else in this game was the end of half sequence, right? And part of the reason is because this was not the first time. In fact, the Eagles have now had the ball at the end of the first half in 3 of the 5 games. Thankfully, in the other 2, the other team had it. And the way it's gone, every single one of them had the exact same thing happen. The Eagles completed a pass in the middle of the field with around 1 minute left. Again, this happened 3 times. This happened in Brazil, this happened in New Orleans, and it happened in this last game against Cleveland. And in all 3 of them, the Eagles had timeouts to spare and did not call timeout. Let the clock run down from 1 minute down to like around 35 seconds. This happened in all 3 of them. And then had to frantically rush on the rest of the plays. It led to having to settle for a field goal in Brazil where they just ran out of time because they didn't call timeout. They had timeouts in their pocket and they just ran out of time. The infamous 4th and 1 fake tush push in New Orleans doesn't happen if they don't let the clock run down from 58 to 34 for no reason on the catch, like just 2 plays before it or whatever it was. And now the blocked field goal that led to the touchdown. So the results have been getting progressively worse, having to settle for 3, not scoring at all, and now just letting the other team score. And it's like the punishment is getting worse, but the crime is the same every time. It's not calling timeout in that situation. And then we had the end of game fiasco in Atlanta, which I've already ranted about. So that's 4 out of 5 games now where Nick Sirianni is completely messed up, either an end of half or an end of game clock management situation. The only one that he didn't mess up was Tampa Bay, and that's because he didn't get the chance. Tampa Bay had the ball at the end of the half, and then it was a blowout, so there was no end of game. So, I mean, if this is all Nick Sirianni does, he has to do better, and it's driving me crazy that this same thing keeps happening. And for all the talk of learning from your mistakes and like not repeating the same mistakes and all that kind of stuff, it's precisely the same mistake. Call timeout if there's a minute left, and you catch the ball in the middle of the field and get everybody settled. I mean, you don't have the luxury there to waste so much time.
Yeah, I think his rationale here, or at least what I would anticipate his rationale being, is somewhat flawed in that because it hasn't come to fruition here. He's really into not giving the ball back.
Oh yeah, you don't want to give it to Deshaun Watson with 30 seconds left.
So he doesn't want to do that. So what? And so you're at the middle of the field there. If you call timeout with a minute to go, right? And
getting
then
too cute, like I did on Swooper yesterday.
Yeah. So then you're in a situation where if you don't get the first, you're giving them the ball with a chance to drive. So he tends to like to wait for the 30 seconds there. But I agree. Like A, it hasn't worked out. B, you have plays like Saquon, short of the sticks this week, right? And it just screws up that whole plan, if you will. So I agree. It's a flawed plan. It's a flawed plan because it hasn't worked, and I think the sample size is large enough there. A matter of fact, you might be able to make an argument that if you score quickly, you could potentially get the ball back. Like if you have an explosive there from midfield, you have timeouts for them on defense, and you can potentially get the ball back. But besides the point, besides that, I think he tries to bring it under 30 seconds, preserve his timeouts for a few quick plays before the half, because he is like obsessed with this concept of trying to score before the half and getting the ball out of the half, even though they weren't getting the ball out of the half last week.
And whether you're getting the ball out of the half shouldn't matter. I mean, that's the coaches talk about that, and it should have nothing to do with the decision making at the end of the half. But whatever. One last thing on the offense, and this is more about the upcoming games. This is kind of crazy. I was looking this up. 7 of the remaining 12 games are against defenses ranked 27th or worse by DVOA. 27th or worse. So bottom 6 defenses in 7 of the 12 games left. Now 2 of those are Dallas, 2 of those are Washington. But still, and the best defenses left are Pittsburgh, which is 10th, and Baltimore, which is 13th. So basically, in terms of the offense being challenged by the schedule, that's not really something we're going to see. Now, it's different for the defense. We'll get to that in a second. But the offense does not have any daunting defenses on the schedule, and they have a lot of defenses that have been playing terribly so far. So, I mean, whatever we're waiting for the offense to get unconstipated, to use Lane Johnson's expression, the schedule should
time for them to get off the pot.
That's exactly
as
right.
they say.
Yeah.
Make sure that you become a diehard for good conversation just like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Eagles defense.
Yeah, defense, 26th now, my DVOA. We're waiting for that number to get up to average. Hard to judge playing against that Cleveland offense, how good they were. Despite, I thought, a very good performance by Michael Dunn.
I thought so too.
It was great to meet Marissa in person for the first time. We watched warm-up.
awesome.
We watched warm-ups together, and I learned from her that Michael was starting. It was exciting
And
to hear that.
backing up at center.
And she also
so
said,
when Nick Harris goes down
just,
right away.
She just kind of mentioned it as an aside. She's like, Michael's the backup center today, and he's never really played center. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, and as soon as the center got hurt, I was like, oh, my God. Like,
Right.
Michael's the
probably
backup
what he
center.
was thinking, too.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. But I thought he held up really well. He certainly wasn't the problem. But the one main takeaway, and I know a lot of people have talked about this week, so I'll keep it short. It was great to see Cooper DeJean play. Right. Fangio talked about how he would have played earlier, except they always walk through on Wednesdays. That
So
was my
good.
favorite.
It's
It's
so
such a great Fangio moment where he was like, we don't ever practice. So how would I get him in there? So a couple of tendency things. There was much more man coverage in this game. Over 50%. The Eagles are now up to 7th in man coverage rate for the season, which you don't normally associate with Fangio. In this game, I was wondering if Cooper DeJean was one of the reasons that they played so much man. I think it's a little bit easier for the nickel to play man rather than try to match to routes, and that's something that we've seen issues. There were some issues in this game where Deshaun Watson just sucks. So he didn't punish this, but there were guys running wide open, in particular crossing routes, and particularly against zone coverage. Isaiah Rodgers was to blame for one of them. That one they did complete, and then Cooper DeJean was definitely to blame for at least one or two. He's had issues in general where he has outside leverage and somebody runs a crossing route where he's not sure whether he's supposed to follow that guy or someone on the other side is supposed to match to him, and that's happened now in zone coverage multiple times. And so it'll be interesting in this game because the Giants run a lot of those kinds of crossers. Like against Cincinnati, you could see them running plays where like 3 guys are running deep crossers. So against zone, that's going to be something that's tested in this game. But it was great to see the famous Fangio, what's known as slug, when you bring the slot as a blitzer and then you drop the defensive end on the other side. Did that 3 times. 2 of them resulted in sacks. That was great, and that's something that we obviously Avonte Maddox wasn't bringing that. Cooper DeJean just has a play strength and a speed that's a little bit
that would have been
different.
the game plan even if they had Avonte, but it's hard to believe that.
Yeah, I mean Avonte Maddox blitzed maybe 3 times in 4 games, and then Cooper DeJean 3 times in this one game. Yeah, and one of those was, Fran broke this down in his video. I thought it was really cool. When the defensive end drops like that, it's almost always zone coverage. But one of those was man coverage, and Nolan Smith dropped as a hole defender. I thought that was a cool wrinkle in this game.
Now, Zach, on defense, seems like there's been a pretty heavy emphasis on one particular thing this week for the Eagles in the building.
Tackling? What?
Go get the ball.
Oh, go. Yes.
man,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Against the Giants offense.
Yeah,
that
takeaways.
does turn the ball over.
That and
Absolutely.
tackle the safety coach, right?
Joe Casper. Yeah.
What
No,
a
you're
job!
absolutely
What a
right.
job that must be.
Yeah, the takeaways have been a problem. It's been an emphasis now. As we've discussed, I don't think you can coach takeaways. Like they've talked about it, but they're not. The ball's not even coming loose. It's why that swoop item about the fumble recoveries is still present. It's not becoming it. So this is a team that you should be able to take the ball away against. If they don't do it this week, it's probably the trend becomes a little more alarming. I don't think turnovers comes in waves per se, but I also think game flow matters too, right? I mean, I think that typically if you have a lead, you force a team to be one dimensional, especially a quarterback like Daniel Jones, that could work in your favor.
You think the turnovers are coming?
I mean, I hope that it's one of these things where it's not the coaching. It's not because they haven't practiced it or whatever. I heard Shield talking about this yesterday, so I did a deeper dive into this. The Eagles' defense is current.
Interesting. That's a bit of a it's good that you're giving Shield credit, but now you're saying he didn't go deep enough. You can go deeper.
I think it's safe to say that I dig a little bit deeper into true media than Shield does, and that's not because of anything other than I just have more free time on my hands.
I love the custom. I love the custom pages that Professor Selman's created. Makes true media even better.
There you go. There you go. I bet Sheila wishes he could get some of those. Yeah, I'm just saying. So the Eagles defense is currently creating less than 1 expected point per game from forced turnovers. And if you wonder how that compares historically to other defenses, of the 798 defenses since 2000, that's the entire True Media data set, that would be 798th. No defense has ever caused less damage from turnovers. And 764 of the 766 before this have at least had double that number. So this isn't just like the Eagles are in a little bit of a drought. This is like a historically bad. I mean, there are only 2 turnovers, 2 Reed Blankenship interceptions in 5 games. And now one of only 2 teams not to have recovered a fumble. Surely the regression is going to arrive at some point.
To some degree, yeah.
And an average team forces a little bit over 5 points worth of game per turnovers, and the Eagles are at 1. So if the regression were to go all the way to the mean, that's 4 points a game that the Eagles would gain from this. So like let's hope that it's random, because 4 points a game will get you a lot of extra wins. Now the Giants' offense is 26th in EPA per game lost from turnovers. They're losing almost a touchdown per game from turnovers. So maybe this is the week that regression begins. The Giants' offensive line is banged up, in terms of like pass rush creating turnovers. We know Andrew Thomas is on IR. Yep. Joshua Ezeudu was terrible in the games that he played last year. So we'll see how that goes. In terms of the pass rush actually getting there, one thing to note, the Giants only send all 5 eligibles into routes on 60% of their dropbacks. That's dead last in the league. So even with Andrew Thomas healthy, they were leaving guys in to protect more than any other team in the league. And so it's just something to note that the Giants are not the kind of team that leaves their tackles on islands normally, and they certainly won't with Ezeudu playing. The tight ends are basically extra offensive linemen. They only target the tight ends 9% of the time, which is dead last in the league.
Theo Johnson, they've been using him more in these past 2 weeks. Now, the part of that might have been Malik Nabers' absence. And I think when in looking at the Giants, the real big difference is like when Nabers is there and when Nabers is not, because he is so heavily targeted that they force feed him the ball. So that's going to be a major thing this week.
Right. Overall, 76% of the targets go to wide receivers, which is the most in the league. Wan'Dale Robinson gets a lot of targets as well.
I would like to propose a mini game. The 3 of us are going to predict who's going to be involved in the next Eagles takeaway. Okay, and the prize is 1 turkey with which to add to your swooper steaks, and you're going to be Fran's proxy.
Oh, what? I don't think Fran would agree to this.
You get 1 turkey.
Bo's just trying to add to his reservoir.
Well, of course. Bo, Fran is in
if it is a fumble, you only get a half turkey, unless they both force it and recover it.
All right. I'll go first.
Go ahead. Fran, do you agree to this? Well, yeah. Well,
Fran agrees. It's 1 turkey.
Fran. Why don't we just let Fran?
You're going Cooper.
I'm going Cooper DeJean.
Fran, why don't you say
Fran
your choice?
Can put his in the chat.
Yeah.
All right,
by the way, am I pronouncing his name incorrectly, or was Kenny Albert last week just totally off on it?
What did Kenny Albert say?
He was doing like DeJean, Cooper DeJean, or something.
No, that's wrong.
It's DeHon.
It's Cooper DeJean, right?
I believe so.
Like the jeans, like denim.
I mean, I don't think his great grandparents pronounced it that way.
No,
but I'm pretty sure that's how he pronounced it.
DeJean.
Yes.
I'll take. Has Fran gone yet?
He just says that he agrees to the terms.
Oh, so he wants you to take it.
Wait, you want me to say it for you? Come on, Fran.
I'll go. I think Quinion is too easy. I'm going to say it's C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
I was going to say that. Oh, you get the first pick now too? You're just making all the rules?
No, he got the first pick. He took.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're allowed to pick the guy.
Cooper
Who did you say? You said Cooper.
I said Cooper.
I'm gonna say. Maybe this is just because it's what I want. I'm gonna say BG.
That's a good one.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I like that. The Super Bowl. All right. Before we get going, you got to give us your uniform stats.
Oh yeah, uniforms. A quick thing about the upcoming schedule: the defense will be tested.
Yes.
And I would actually like to see, like, Jalen Carter's had 1 good game, and it's because he played against Cesar Ruiz, right? Like it would be nice to see this defense play well against like individuals, like playing against like higher talented opponents, then it would be like to see like the team dominate somebody other than the Cleveland Browns. So the Bengals are 8th in DVOA. 2 games against Washington, they're 2nd, and the Ravens are 1st. Those are going to be the 4 big tests coming up for this defense. Bengals coming up in just a little over a week. The Eagles, again, like the offense in terms of the schedule has a lot of cupcakes coming up, but the defense does not. And I just want to see the defense perform well against better teams, and hopefully all that stuff we've heard about, learning the Fangio defense and all that stuff, will come to fruition against those good teams. Have the Eagles announced the uniform? I know they're wearing white, but have they announced the pants? I don't think they've announced it.
Not familiar with that at this point.
Under Sirianni, the Eagles dominant in the white jerseys, regardless of the pants. White on black, 5-1. White on green, 7-2. White on white, 6-2. So it doesn't even matter. Take your pick. They're now 14-16 when wearing green on white, and 25-6 otherwise. So they should be fine. In any case, wearing white in this game. They will have to wear green next week against the Bengals, because the Bengals have announced that they're doing the all white, including the white helmets, against the Eagles.
Well, the Eagles could go black, I suppose.
Oh, maybe they're going all white to celebrate the wedding.
Oh,
I don't think that's what it is.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And the Eagles could go all black, and then it would be like bride and groom.
Exactly.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. You got anything else to say?
No, this has been a good show. Yeah, so I'll give my
You're
prediction.
thinking to yourself, was it worth me leaving the locker room early to get here? That's what's going on.
No. I got big. I got to roll out in the next 4 minutes. That's what I was thinking.
We all do.
Yeah. Yes, my son's got a playoff game tonight.
Oh, baby.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
big. And if they win, it's the championship thereafter.
This is flag football?
Flag football.
Oh, they're already in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh, Everyone's league is significantly. The playoffs aren't until late November.
I've been hearing about this for every single night. This is the story.
This is big stuff.
And Brandon Graham's excited for. Yeah, so we're all excited for it. I think the Eagles win this game.
Wait, is he playing against Brandon Graham's kid?
Maybe.
All right. Okay.
So Eagles Giants here in the. I like the Eagles in this game. I think they're the better team. I think that even with the injuries to the Eagles, the injury to Andrew Thomas is significant for the Giants. I like this Giants defense quite a bit. The Eagles offense must play better, but I am picking the Eagles to win here. They are 3-point favorites. The over-under is 42.5. Okay. But you know what? I actually think the Eagles, I think, are 2-10 in the last 12 games. They're favored. But I think the
Eagles 24-20. Is that where you're going?
I am going with the Eagles 28, the Giants 19.
Okay.
And then I also want to say, too, if you are in the Fairless Hills area, Oxford Valley, or even if you're not, but I am signing books at the Barnes & Noble tomorrow at Fairless Hills from noon to 2.
Nice.
The Oxford Valley Barnes & Noble from noon to 2. So stop by, talk Eagles, and I'll be at the Shane Gillis concert tonight, or Shane Gillis comedy show tonight. Okay. So if anyone sees me and they want to come say hello, I would love to talk Eagles with you there as well. And then make sure we have a great event on Sunday as well, PHLY.
In media. Yeah. State Street Pub.
Yeah.
Eagles did announce black pants. Now, they have only lost in those one time with Sirianni. The bad news is it was in this stadium.
I remember the Gardner Minshew game.
It was
the Jets last year.
Won the Gardner Minshew game.
Yeah.
It was the Jets last year. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. Yeah.
Bryce Huff game. Jack Driscoll game.
Was the Bryce Huff game.
Yes.
That's right.
First time they ever lost to the Jets. Franchise history. Oh, well. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Go check out Zach tomorrow at Noble and Barnes, and we will talk to you on Sunday. The full slate of coverage, kickoff show, halftime show, post-game show, all that good stuff. Lots of stuff to read as well on allphly.com, so you can become a diehard and make that happen. And we will talk to you on Sunday. For all of us here at PHLY, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.